In the summer of 1944, the Imperial Japanese Navy put to sea with the largest carrier fleet it had ever assembled, 50% larger than the force that attacked Pearl Harbor. 5 fleet carriers, hundreds of aircraft, the flagship, Taiho, was the most powerful carrier Japan had ever built. Commissioned just 3 months earlier, her armored flight deck designed to be unsinkable. Her commander was one of the IJN's most gifted admirals. He believed he was sailing toward Japan's decisive victory. He was wrong. But here is what makes this story strange. The men who defeated him didn't know they'd done it. Not for months. Saipan falls, or rather, it begins to fall, on June 15th, 1944. American Marines come ashore and the fighting is brutal and ongoing. But the strategic verdict has already landed in Tokyo. If Saipan is lost, B-29 superfortresses can reach Japan. The home islands, the cities, the emperor's capital. The Imperial Navy has no choice. Vice Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa's orders arrive at Tawi-Tawi. The first mobile fleet is to sail. It will find the American fleet in the Philippine Sea and destroy it. The decisive battle that Japanese strategic doctrine has been planning since 1941. This is the moment. Operation Eigo is audacious in design. Ozawa's carriers will launch strikes from beyond American retaliation range. Japanese land-based aircraft on Guam, Rota, and Tinian will act as a shuttle, attacking the American fleet, recovering on island airstrips, rearming, and attacking again. 2 sets of wings against 1. The math on paper is decisive. The fleet sails on June 13th. 5 fleet carriers, 4 light carriers, 5 battleships including Yamato and Musashi, the 2 largest battleships ever built, 13 heavy cruisers, 27 destroyers. The sea moves under the weight of it. Admiral Matome Ugaki, commanding the battleships from Yamato's flag bridge, writes in his diary, "Can it be that we'll fail to win with this mighty force?" No, it can't be. There are 2 things Ozawa does not know. The first, his pilots. The catastrophic attrition of Midway and Guadalcanal has not been repaired. It has been hidden. The men who will launch from his carriers on June 19th are flying against Americans who have been fighting for years, guided by radar, directed by combat information centers, flying the Grumman F-6F Hellcat. In many cockpits of Ozawa's air groups, the men facing them have barely mastered the aircraft they are flying, let alone the tactics to survive it. The second thing Ozawa does not know, American submarines are already waiting. On Taiho's flag bridge, in the clear morning air of the Philippine Sea, Ozawa watches his fleet in formation. His flagship is the most powerful carrier Japan has ever sent to sea. Commissioned March 1944. 3 months old, never tested in battle. 855 feet long, nearly 30,000 tons. Her most important feature is her deck, armored plate, designed specifically to survive the kind of bomb hits that destroyed 4 Japanese carriers in a single afternoon at Midway in 1942. The lesson of Midway has been built into every bolt of her hull. She's the answer to Midway. Her aviation fuel tanks are only partially armored. The designers chose to protect the magazines instead. The empty spaces around the elevator wells, running close to the waterline, are left exposed, a reasonable trade-off. No one expects a single torpedo to matter much to a ship like this. 60 miles away in the same formation, the fleet carrier Shokaku steams at full speed. Soaring crane. She was commissioned in August 1941 and attacked Pearl Harbor 4 months later. Coral Sea, Eastern Solomons, Santa Cruz. 3 years of war, and she has survived them all. She took bomb hits at Coral Sea that put her in the repair yard for months. And those months kept her out of the Battle of Midway in June 1942. Some historians argue that her absence, and her sister Zuikaku's absence, decided that battle. She was too difficult to sink at Coral Sea. That survival arguably cost Japan the war at Midway. She sails on, not knowing this. No one alive knows this yet. 2 submarines are already in position. USS Albacore, SS-218, a Gato-class fleet submarine, 311 feet long, commissioned June 1942, 10 war patrols, one of the most productive boats in the Pacific Fleet. Her skipper is Commander James Blanchard. 8 patrols, a decorated record, are professionals, calm. He has been at periscope depth west of the Marianas since before dawn. His torpedo data computer, the instrument that automatically calculates deflection angles and firing solutions, the technological heart of a submarine attack in 1944, is functioning normally. For now. USS Cavalla, SS-244, also Gato class, also 311 feet, commissioned February 29, 1944. She has never fired a torpedo in anger. Her skipper is Lieutenant Commander Herman Kostler, 32 years old. He served on USS Godfish early in the war. He has never commanded his own boat in combat. This is Cavalla's first war patrol. 2 submarines, 1 fleet, moving toward each other in the dark. 2 days before the battle, on the evening of June 17th, Cavalla's radar picks up something large. Kostler raises the periscope. Through the lens, 15 or more large combatant ships pushing through the darkness. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers. It is Ozawa's fleet. The carrier that will become his target in 48 hours is somewhere in that formation. Kostler does not yet know it. He faces a choice. He is close enough to attack. The angles are developing, but what he is looking at is not just a target. It is intelligence. Course, speed, formation. This information, transmitted to Admiral Spruance, will tell the American command exactly where the Japanese fleet is and where it is going. Kostler chooses to report. The signal reaches Spruance's command. It is the single most important piece of intelligence the American fleet receives before the battle. It comes from a crew that has never been in combat. Kostler submerges and continues his assigned patrol track, not yet knowing he will see part of this fleet again in 48 hours at 1,200 yards through this same periscope in full daylight. June 19th. Dawn breaks clear over the Philippine Sea. Trade winds push northeast swells across 2 million square miles of open ocean. The sky is sharp and blue. There is no weather to hide in. Ozawa's fleet is launching aircraft. The first strike waves are already in the air, turning east toward Task Force 58. Taiho's flight deck thrums with engines. She is flying the Admiral's flag. She is 3 months old. She has never been attacked. Commander Blanchard raises his periscope at approximately 0800. He is in the middle of Ozawa's main carrier group. The formation fills his lens. Enormous gray shapes, white bow waves, escort destroyers churning ahead and behind. One carrier passes too close. The angle is wrong, the geometry impossible. Blanchard lets it go. He selects the second carrier. He begins his approach. He does not know her name. She is the largest ship he has ever aimed at. His torpedo data computer fails. Without the TDC, there are no automatic calculations, no computer-generated deflection angles. Blanchard is shooting by experience and instinct alone, estimating in his head the course of a 30,000-ton carrier at 27 knots, placing 6 torpedoes in her path by feel and training and nerve. He fires. 6 torpedoes in a spread at 0816. Above the water, at that same moment, Warrant Officer Sakio Komatsu is climbing away from Taiho's flight deck. He has just launched as part of the morning strike. From the air, he looks down and sees what the men on the surface cannot yet see. Torpedo tracks, white lines in the water, converging on his ship. He makes his decision in seconds. He pushes the stick forward, dives his aircraft directly into one of the incoming torpedoes, and detonates it. He dies. 1 torpedo destroyed. This was among the first deliberate self-sacrifice attacks of the Pacific War. The tactic that would define the war's final year, the kamikaze program that would cost thousands of lives on both sides, begins in this moment, above this ship, in this second. And it was not enough. The sixth torpedo had already struck. The hit lands on Taiho's starboard side at the base of the forward aircraft elevator. The elevator jams in the up position. The pit below it, now open, begins flooding with a mixture of water, aviation fuel, and crude oil from Tarakan, the highly volatile, unrefined grade the Japanese fleet has been running on for years. The armored flight deck above, designed for exactly this moment, is undamaged. Speed drops by 1 knot. On the flag bridge, Ozawa receives the damage report. The flight deck is clear. Operations continue. The ship is fine. Deep below, in the spaces around the crumpled elevator well, fuel, vapor, is rising. Carriers always smell of fuel. The smell of catastrophe is indistinguishable from the smell of a normal morning at sea. The crew breathe the air of their ship and does not know what they are breathing. In the hours that follow, an officer below decks is tasked with managing the fumes accumulating from the elevator well. He opens the ventilation ducts to disperse them throughout the ship. He believes this is the correct response. What he has done is route every compartment of a 30,000-ton carrier into a single expanding gas cloud. Taiho's armor worked exactly as designed. The torpedo hit was survivable. The ship will not survive this decision. 3 Japanese destroyers are depth-charging Albacore. Blanchard and his crew are pressed deep, listening to the concussions above them, counting and waiting. He heard 1 hit as the torpedoes ran. 4 of the 6 definitely missed. He believes he has lost a chance that will not come again. He is wrong about everything. But he does not know it yet. 60 miles away, the vapor spreads through Taiho's ventilation system. A sailor below decks notices the smell and thinks nothing of it. The morning continues. Shortly before noon, USS Cavalla's periscope breaks the surface of the Philippine Sea. Kostler finds the ship immediately. She is turning into the southeast wind to recover aircraft, her bow wave high, her flight deck active. One of her escort destroyers steams alongside, unhurried, inattentive. The ship is enormous in the lens, 844 feet, 32,000 tons fully loaded. Her silhouette is unmistakable on the recognition charts. Kostler steps back from the eyepiece and has his executive officer look, then the gunnery officer. Even now, with the attack geometry developing by the minute, he takes the time to be certain. Both officers confirm the identification. This is Shokaku, the ship that launched the Pearl Harbor attack. The geometry is as close to perfect as submarine warfare offers. Kostler has raised the periscope only 3 times during the entire approach. At 11:18 hours, with Shokaku 1,200 yards off his bow, barely 2/3 of a mile, he gives the order to fire. 6 torpedoes, 8 seconds apart. Cavalla is already diving as the last one leaves the tube. Then silence. Then waiting. 3 hits, possibly 4. Cavalla's patrol report counted 3. Japanese survivors reported 4. The records disagree. The result did not. 1 torpedo rams into Shokaku's forward fuel tanks near the main hangar. Planes on the hangar deck with fuel lines still connected catch fire instantly. The crew moves to contain it. They have fought fires on this ship before. They fight this one for 4 hours. 300 feet beneath them, Cavalla is pinned. Japanese destroyers roll depth charges above her, each one a sharp crack through the hull, a shock through the deck plates, a concussion that rattles instruments and rattles men. Kostler's crew work their stations in silence, holding depth, waiting. Then something different arrives through the hull. Not the sharp crack of depth charges. Something deeper, longer, structural. It arrives in rolling concussions rather than sudden snaps. It comes up through the water, through the pressure hull, through the deck plating under every man's feet. The crew of Cavalla feels Shokaku dying before they hear it. The carrier explodes, then explodes again, then goes under. 1,263 men go with her. The light cruiser Yahagi and her destroyers move through the wreckage to recover survivors. Small squalls gather around them. Kostler and his crew, still deep, still hunted, hear the explosions and feel the ocean carry it to them through 300 feet of water and cold, dark steel. They cannot see what they have done. They can only feel the Philippine Sea tell them. By early afternoon, the air battle overhead is already a catastrophe for Japan. Ozawa's strike waves, launched in 4 raids, 374 aircraft, are flying into a wall of American Hellcats directed by radar. The ratios are not a battle. They are an erasure. Only 31 planes return to their carriers, but on Taiho, it has been 6 hours since the torpedo hit. The flight deck has remained operational. The damage reports from below are contained. The vapor has been spreading since 0900, drawn by the ventilation system into every compartment, filling the ship from the inside. No one can smell it because carriers always smell of this. At 13:30, a spark finds it. The explosion blows out both sides of Taiho's hangar simultaneously. The armored flight deck, the feature that was supposed to make this ship unsinkable, buckles and warps from below. The hull tears open. She settles. Ozawa's staff persuades him to leave. He transfers to the destroyer Wakatsuki, then to the heavy cruiser Haguro, and stands on Haguro's bridge and watches his flagship capsize and sink. She is 3 months old. She has never fought before this morning. She takes 1,650 men with her. The armor worked. The torpedo hit was survivable. An unnamed junior officer in a compartment below the waterline opened a ventilation duct in the hours between 0900 and 13:30. That is what killed Taiho. Not American firepower, not Blanchard's torpedo, though without it, the chain never begins. One wrong call made by one man history did not record, in a room filling with invisible vapor. Ozawa attempts to resume command from Haguro's bridge. The communications equipment on Taiho's flag bridge was designed for Taiho. It is incompatible with the cruiser's setup. For critical hours, the commander of Japan's largest fleet sits aboard a heavy cruiser, unable to reach his own formation, watching his air groups destroyed overhead. Now the full arithmetic can be assembled. Ozawa launched 374 aircraft on June 19th. 31 returned to their carriers. His land-based air reserves on Guam, the linchpin of Operation Ergo, the shuttle force that was supposed to double his striking power, had been largely destroyed by American pre-battle strikes and never arrived. The Marianas Turkey Shoot was partly the product of superior American training and technology. It was also the product of Ozawa fighting it from the wrong ship, with degraded communications disrupted and delayed because of a single torpedo fired manually by a commander whose fire control computer had failed 3 hours before the first American fighter rose to meet the first Japanese strike wave. By the following evening, 3 Japanese carriers are gone. Taiho and Shokaku on June 19th. The carrier Hio, struck by American carrier aircraft on June 20th. 429 Japanese aircraft destroyed in total. The carrier air arm that had opened the Pacific War at Pearl Harbor, rebuilt at terrible cost through Midway and Guadalcanal and Santa Cruz and everything after, has effectively ceased to exist as a fighting force. Among the dead on Shokaku were men who had stood on her deck on December 7th, 1941. They launched the attack that started the Pacific War. They fought through Coral Sea. They survived Santa Cruz. They went back to sea and back again, and sailed into the Philippine Sea for the last time. The veterans of Pearl Harbor ended in the same ocean as the war they helped begin. One ship of the Kido Butai's original strike force survived, Zuikaku. She had 4 months left. USS Cavalla surfaced, reported her attack, and continued her patrol. Kostler received the Navy Cross. He went on to sink the super-destroyer Shimotsky that November. He rose to Rear Admiral. He lived to see Cavalla preserved as a museum ship in Seawolf Park in Galveston, Texas. The submarine that, on the first day of its first war patrol, sank Japan's greatest veteran carrier. He had heard Shokaku die through his hull. And then there is Blanchard. He surfaced on June 19th angry. He had missed a golden opportunity. His patrol report claimed damage to a Shokaku-class carrier. Conservative, professional, the honest assessment of a man who heard one hit and counted 4 misses. American codebreakers monitoring Japanese signals noticed Taiho had gone silent, puzzled by her disappearance from traffic, but could not confirm a sinking. The picture was unclear for months. Blanchard received credit for damaging an enemy carrier. He went back to sea on his 10th patrol. He went back again on his 11th. In October 1944, Albacore stopped at Midway to refuel before heading out once more. The last communication received from her was October 28, 1944. She was never heard from again. On November 7, 1944, a Japanese patrol craft off the northern coast of Hokkaido recorded a mine explosion beneath the surface. The records noted the position: latitude 41 degrees 49 minutes north, longitude 141 degrees 11 minutes east. Whatever was below them was not identified. Albacore and her 85 men came to rest on the floor of the sea, not far from the coast of Japan. Blanchard had filed his patrol report believing he had damaged a carrier. He went back to sea and back again, and was lost, without ever knowing that the single torpedo he fired manually, with a broken computer, at a ship whose name he didn't know, had set off the chain of events that sank Japan's greatest carrier and helped unmake the last Japanese fleet. In 2022, a research team from the University of Tokyo, led by Dr. Tamaki Ura, located the wreck of USS Albacore in the waters off Hokkaido. In February 2023, the U.S. Naval History and Heritage Command confirmed the discovery. The submarine that had killed Japan's greatest carrier was found by a Japanese scientist, working from Japanese records, resting in Japanese waters off the coast of the country she helped defeat. USS Albacore rests off the coast of Hokkaido today. She has been there for 80 years. She lies on the floor of the sea of the country she helped defeat, found at last by a Japanese scientist who looked for her because the records said she was there. She's still there.